Hello guys and welcome to this video. Now, I haven't posted for a while, but because the new season's coming up, we will be back posting a lot on this channel. And throughout this year, we're going to have vlogs. We're going to be attending a lot of Bolton games, actually. So we're going to have a lot of matchday vlogs. And of course, we'll be at the West Ham away games mostly. So you'll be able to see all of that. So if you're new, make sure you do subscribe. Now, in today's video, we are going to be looking at all the fixtures that have come out and the teams that you should be targeting between, game week 1 all the way up to game week 6 or game week 10, judging on how you feel. And then at the end of the video, we're going to take a look at some rotational strategies that you can use between different teams that go up all the way to game week 10. So, you can have one player from one team and one player from the other. And in between game weeks, when one team has a good fixture and the other has a worse, you can just swap them in and out. So you've got no wasted transfers that you have to make, and you can utilise that transfer to the best of your ability. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So here we are then, taking a look at some teams that you should target in game week 1. Now, this graphic from Fantasy Football Scout shows us all the way up to game week 10. And the first team I would recommend looking at is Arsenal. Now, as you can see, they're on the top of your screen there. Palace, Leicester, Bournemouth, Fulham, Villa as the first 5 fixtures they have. The only real tough one in there is maybe Leicester at a push, but they've got 2 newly promoted teams in Bournemouth and Fulham. Now, hopefully, all of that energy that they get from being promoted will be taken away after the first few game weeks, you would have thought. So, Arsenal assets should actually be very good at returning points. Now, looking into some Arsenal assets, I would certainly be looking at Bukayo Saka. He had great numbers last year for Arsenal, and potentially if they sign Gabriel Jesus, he could be a really good one. If you're looking more at a defensive option, you've got Ramsdale in goal, who will probably be a bit more expensive this year. However, Ben White was very cheap last year. I say very cheap, 4.5 million, but he would be a very good asset to get in your defence, as I can see Arsenal having quite a few clean sheets. After that, though, their fixtures are a bit ropey. Man United, Everton, Brentford, Tottenham and Liverpool. 3 of the big 6 in there. So you have to factor this when making decisions to get your Arsenal players, because as you've got them in those 5 game weeks, it all could be great, but once you hit that game week 6, you're then stuck with him and you can't get rid of him. So it's always important to plan ahead. So as you can see, the next team I would recommend to target players from is Chelsea. Now, they have Everton, Tottenham, Leeds, Leicester, Southampton and West Ham in their first 6 game weeks. Yes, Spurs will be a tough one, especially with the summer signings they've made. But other than that, it's looking very good. And then after that, they've still got Fulham, Crystal Palace and Wolves. Obviously, Liverpool being the exception, because that's always the toughest game playing Liverpool, you would have thought, other than Man City. But Chelsea assets are going to be very, very good this year. All their defenders are pretty much back fit now. However, you would like to see Chelsea sign a few centre-backs, losing Rudiger, which is a massive loss for them, by the way. But Chilwell is returning, and Reece James should be back at full fitness. Now, if I was to pick one or the other, I would definitely choose Reece James. He's very effective going forward. Also with Chilwell, you've got more of a rotation risk with Alonso, because he played okay last year, and I can't really see Hudson-Odoi starting instead of Reece James at right wing back, and Aspilicueta with his old age has been moved more into the centre-back position. Now, going into the attacking options, there's not too many who you would trust, because there's been a lot of rotation. Lukaku's just gone to Inter Milan. What an awful transfer that was, by the way. Major flop. And, I think they've got 8 million a loan fee, and there's no buy option at the end of it, so they might be stuck with him unless Inter want to go back in. But I think you're considering people like Mason Mount. He's on a few set pieces and he tends to be their creative spark. Kai Havertz now could take a vital role in the number 9, and if he gets a great run of games, which is very possible, he could get a lot of goals and assists in these fixtures, so he's definitely one to watch. So the next 2 teams we're going to be looking at are again at the top of your screen, and you will have expected this one, obviously, because who wouldn't put players from these clubs in? Liverpool and Man City. Now, we'll start off with Liverpool. As you can see, they've been nice with their start. Fulham, Crystal Palace, United, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Everton, Wolves. In their first, 7 game weeks, you would say at least 6 of them are definitely winnable. United may be a bit tough. I say that, people are going to mock me for that because of how poor United were. But you never know. They could be better under Ten Hag. They've also got 2 newly promoted teams in their first 4 fixtures. And Salah has to be in your team, alright? If you don't put Mo Salah in and you try and be different, it's not going to work for you. Salah has also returned on like the last 5 game week ones. So he's put someone you could even look at captaining. I know we've got Haaland as well, Son, Kane. There's so many options you could choose from this year. It's unbelievable. And obviously then you've got Trent at the back, who I think is a must-have. Last year I did go for a bit of a differential in Robertson, but I got rid of him once he started returning. And I also feel like, even though Liverpool have just signed a right back from Aberdeen, I think there's more of a rotation risk with Robertson at left back with Tsimikas, because he's been far better this season. And Trent is on those set pieces, so you know he can get us those attacking returns as well as the defensive ones where they keep the clean sheets. Other than that, there's not too many I would go for. You know, maybe Luis Diaz will be a great option this year. I can see him, you know, getting a great run of games. And I think Núñez maybe wants to stay away from. Yes, he could be absolutely amazing, but I think he might be a bit of a rotational player with Jota the first year as he gets, you know, a grip of what Premier League football is actually about. He's a very physical player, so he'll need to learn how to use his body more effectively and not burn as much energy as he could maybe in the Liga NOS in Portugal. Then we'll take a look at Man City. Now, once again, the big teams have a very nice start. West Ham, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Crystal Palace, Forest, Villa. You would say all 6 of them games are certainly winnable, as they are normally for Man City anyway, but you would say they were more favourable than the other ones. Now, the main Man City assets I'm looking at are Cancelo, because out of all the defenders, he probably plays most. I feel like, yes, Ruben Diaz is reliable, but he has been injured a few times this season, and as well as that, they do have quite a few rotational options at centre-back. You know, they've got Diaz and Laporte starting, but then you've got to look at Stones and Nathan Ake, who can actually be switched out for him. So I think Cancelo is definitely a main one to have, and Man City are looking at selling Zinchenko, so they may not have many options to cover him at that full-back position. Now, if we're looking at attackers, again, Pep rotation is an absolute nightmare. But I feel like Haaland is a must-have. Now, I was never going to look past that man, because we've seen the numbers he's produced in the Bundesliga, and, you know, even before that when he was playing in Norway, his numbers are absolutely ridiculous, off the charts. So I feel like it was stupid not to include him, especially when he's got De Bruyne supplying him, which again is another premium option you could have. However, there's so many, I don't feel like you'll be able to include them all in your squad. You know, with Pep rotation, it's very important that you select with particular interest in that your players could potentially get rotated. There's no guarantee that they're going to start. However, Haaland may get injured a few games this season, but the amount of goals they're most likely to get will make up for it. And with all that money in the striker position, you're then free to get any other striker, really, because I can see him being 12.5 million. So there's 2 more teams we're going to take a look at now, and then after this I'm going to show you some rotational strategies that you can use throughout the first 10 game weeks that can help you swap players here and there, so you're not stressing about your players having to have good fixtures. But first of all, we're going to take a look at Spurs. Obviously their attack was on fire. That front three last year was insane. You know, Kulusevski, Son and Kane, predominantly Kane and Son towards the end of the season. I feel like Son was absolutely robbed of an award in PFA Player of the Year, and he didn't even get nominated for Player of the Year, I don't think, which is just ridiculous considering he scored the most non-penalty goals that season. So I feel like if I was to choose between Kane and Son, I feel like I'm more leaning towards Son and Haaland up front. So Salah, Son and Haaland, if I can fit all 3 of them in, it'll be lucky. But I just feel like Son is different quality. Now, looking at the defensive options, whether Perisic is going to be a defender for Spurs will have a massive impact on my team. Because if Perisic is a defender for Spurs, I can see me putting him straight in there. And, you know, he's got great numbers at Inter Milan and he played at Bayern Munich, a very experienced player. He's played mostly everywhere. Not the Premier League yet, I don't think. But, you know, I expect him to do well. He's got a great left foot on him, so he should put, you know, plenty of crosses in the box. And when you got Harry Kane in the box, he should be scoring a few of them. So I feel like Perisic is probably the best defender with potentials of getting assists. On the other side, I mean, you've got Emerson Royale, and Spurs fans always moan about how bad he is, and they hope to get rid of him. And you've also got Matt Doherty, who was actually coming into some good form. But has since dropped off, but they could be getting Jed Spence. Now, I'm unsure about that one because he's not Premier League proven. I know Perisic isn't, but Perisic played in the Champions League and everywhere, but Jed Spence hasn't. He's just been in the Championship. He previously played at Middlesbrough, so he's got to be tried and tested first. Now moving on to our final team, it is Wolves, who have a very, very saucy run. You know, they've got Leeds, Fulham, Tottenham, which will be a tough one, Newcastle, Bournemouth, Southampton. So again, their run is looking nice. They've also got 2 newly promoted teams. Now, Wolves' assets are actually pretty tricky. I don't actually think Wolves will do that well this season, but off their fixtures, they're very hard to actually ignore. I feel like if you're going for a defender, you know, Aït-Nouri played well last year and he's normally quite a cheap option. However, again, people have been looking at Johnny, so big rotational risk there. Semedo normally plays, but he doesn't get many attacking returns, so it's whether you want to take that risk. Connor Cody is pretty much the nailed-on defender for Wolves every game, you know, the skipper. And Jose Sarr was a surprise to most people how well he performed. So if you're looking for a goalkeeper, Jose Sarr could be up there for you, especially getting those save bonuses in Wolves, who aren't, you know, the most fabulous team. Now, looking at attacking players for Wolves, this is where it sort of struggles. Raul Jimenez had, you know, he's had his issues in the past and he didn't score many last year. It was a bit disappointing. I think Pedro Neto looks like their most exciting player, but again, he's very injury prone and it's hard to avoid. I mean, you could look at people like Ruben Neves, but do you really want to take a risk on Ruben Neves, who doesn't get good returns? So Wolves have great fixtures, right? Don't get me wrong, but you have to consider their options that they actually have and how likely they are to return before you make a decision to put them in your team. So here is the first rotational strategy that you can use. We've got 3 different ones of these to show you. The first one is between Brentford and Newcastle. Now, as you can see, it goes all the way up to game week 10, so you can utilise this for a majority of the beginning of FPL. The person I would probably go for in the Newcastle team is Kieran Trippier. You know, he's got those set pieces on point. We saw him sign in January and hit that great one past Jordan Pickford against Everton. And his overall crossing ability, being an attacking fullback, can get us those returns. I was going for Brentford. Brentford is a bit more of a risky one because, you know, they might struggle this year if they fail to bring in some signings. But I think Henry, you know, he's lightning quick. I also watched him when they played Everton and he was phenomenal. So I'll probably go for him. I was looking at more attacking players. I think it's got to be Saint Maximin for Newcastle. He's got all the flair about him and he can pop up with a goal whenever. And we've also got Bruno for Newcastle, who came in and hit the, you know, he hit the ground running. He was incredible. He scored that beautiful chip versus Norwich, which was just delightful. And he's one to watch out for. For Brentford, I think it's got to be Tony. Without saying, he's their goal scorer. There's also Mbeumo, who is also effective. So that is one you could use. So here is the next one. We have Crystal Palace and Leeds. Now, Leeds did struggle. They conceded loads of goals under Bielsa last year. But Marsh looks like he's got them, you know, playing a bit more defensively and a bit more compact rather than going all out attack all game. And they've brought in a few signings, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And as for Crystal Palace, Vieira has majorly improved them, focusing more on youth than the old. And yeah, they look effective. As for Crystal Palace defenders that you could use, Gueye, I would say, is the most effective one. It'll probably be quite cheap, and he did score a few headers last year. And as for Leeds, more of a defensive option. I wouldn't bank on any of them, actually. I'd more go Meslier because the potential is he's going to get a lot of save points, and he's a good one to have as a cheap keeper who you can rotate. Now, more attacking options, you could use Rafinha, but it's looking likely he could go to Barcelona or Arsenal. It's yet to be seen which one, obviously. And on the other side, you've got Jack Harrison, who could also be effective, who you could go for. And Patrick Bamford, we didn't see much of him last season because of his injuries. However, he could return and surprise us all this year, so he's one to watch out for. And Crystal Palace has to be the Starman Zaha if you're going for an attacking option. He's always in the goals. Whenever they're doing well, he's the head of front of it. So if I was going for a Crystal Palace man, it would have to be Wilfred Zaha. Finally, the one that I think is most effective is the Leicester versus Wolves one. As you can see, they're both, you know, pretty good solid teams in the Premier League, and the fixture rotation you can have between them is great, and I would say they've got more reliable options in their teams, especially Leicester rather than Wolves, than most other teams that we've looked at. Certainly James Maddison and Vardy, probably Leicester's main front two, who I would go for attacking wise, especially Maddison, because Maddison went on a great run at the end of last season. Jamie Vardy is a bit of a rotational risk, however, he's still their main attacker for goals. You've also got Harvey Barnes off the left, who did have a few injuries, but he improved a lot attackingly at the end of the season. And if you're looking at more of a defensive option, they've got a plenty of defenders to choose from when they're all fit. Fofana tends to be the best one, as he was normally very cheap. Like 1 year he's 4.5 million when Leicester were doing really well, and he was in my team. So it'll be interesting to see how Leicester defenders are priced. Castagne is normally a very nice one to have, as when he actually is fit, he can get returns. And Justin on the other side as well, who's just got his call up for England previously a few weeks ago, and is looking up for Leicester when their injuries return. As for Wolves, again, I would probably go, as we previously discussed, for Jose Sarr or Connor Cody as a defender. And as for their attacking, there isn't much, Raul Jimenez, if you really want to stretch it out there. I mean, up to game week 6 is when they have good games, so you could get Raul Jimenez and hope he scores a few goals in those weeks, and after that get rid of him, because he's around that mid price where you can swap him for another striker. So those are the rotation strategies that you could use. Now make sure you get in the comments and let me know which players are you planning on already bringing in to your FPL, and make sure you leave a like on the video, and if you're new, please do subscribe. I appreciate you watching, and see you in the next one.